Okay, I think everyone has come in from the lobby. So, everyone, welcome to Navigating University as a first generation student. I'll just highlight one more time how you can turn on live captions. If you'd like to add captions, you can select the More icon on the top right with three dots, select Language and Speech, and then finally click on Show Live Captions. So before we get into the webinar, I'm going to do a little bit of a land acknowledgement. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and reflect the history of the land that Queen's University is situated on. Kingston is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Indigenous peoples. My intention in acknowledging this traditional territory is to recognize the significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived and to continue to live upon it, and whose practices and spiritualities are tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. As a settler and uninvited guest, I make an effort in my daily life to educate myself about Indigenous culture and practices by attending Indigenous-led events on campus and exploring Indigenous spaces. I encourage all of you to do the same. I recently had the opportunity to take a walking tour of Indigenous spaces and art on Queen's campus and reflect on what they can tell me about Indigenous experiences. A particular space that I enjoyed exploring was the Endayon Teganusidae Residence Courtyard. It features a large gathering space with Indigenous symbolism. In the center of the space, there's a large turtle shell, which really made me think about Turtle Island, which is the Indigenous name for the continent of North America. This space reminds me of Indigenous teachings centered on interconnection with the land and encourages me to reflect. It's important to reflect on Indigenous histories and teachings and to contribute to a more inclusive community that works toward reconciliation. If this is new to you or you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to explore the resources offered by the Office of Indigenous Initiatives and the Four Directions Indigenous Student Center, both online and on campus here at Queen's. Thank you for taking this moment to learn and reflect with me. So now I'll introduce myself. My name is Ella. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the first year foundation student lead with the Student Experience Office. I'm in my fourth year at Queen's, and I'm majoring in math and minoring in computer science. I will be your host for this webinar today. Firstly, I want to say congratulations to all of you. Getting into university is no small feat. It's a reflection of all of your hard work, resilience, and everything you've accomplished so far. Today, you'll hear about some of the common experiences of being the first in your family to attend university and what can be helpful to know as you begin this journey. That alone is something to be incredibly proud of. We hope you leave today's webinar feeling confident, informed, and reassured. Whether you're feeling excited, nervous, or somewhere in between, you're not alone and you belong here. There will also be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the webinar. If you have anything you'd like to ask as you're listening, feel free to put it into the Q&A box on your screen, and then we'll answer them near the end of the presentation. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Student Experience Office webpage in the next few business days. I'm now going to pass it off to our main speaker for today, Taylor, who is the Access and Inclusion Support Coordinator in the Student Experience Office. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you, Ella. Hi, good evening, everybody. As Ella mentioned, my name is Taylor. I'm the Access and Inclusion Support Coordinator in Student Experience, which basically means that I get to have a lot of fun each day working with various students across campus. But tonight I'm here to focus on you, which means first generation student. So if you've joined this webinar, if you're in the room with us, you are likely, hopefully, a first generation student. And I want to start by orienting us all to what I mean when I say that. At Queen's, and really broadly across the province and the country for the most part, you're a first generation student if you are a student whose parents and or guardians did not attend post-secondary education, so college or university. You may or may not have siblings who have attended ahead of you or maybe are even attending with you. This still means you are a first generation student along with your siblings. If this sounds like you, you're in the right place. And I'm very excited today to be sharing some more information that we think is particularly relevant to your Queen's experience. So come on through. Why a webinar specifically for first gen students? We're hosting this webinar not because we assume something is going to go wrong. That's never our assumption when any student is joining us here at Queen's. However, we do recognize that there just may be some norms and information that you're not quite as aware of yet as your peers who do have a generation above them who did attend post-secondary education. Even many first generation students won't even really identify with this identity first and foremost in their time at Queen's. That's also okay. For those of you who do, or who at times want to explore this identity and what it means, Our goal is to make sure that there is a safe space for you to do so. And tonight is just us starting that off, introducing you to a couple of the things that we want you to know before you join us in September. Let's start with some language. I want to preface this slide with saying, this isn't an assumption that other students don't also need this language lesson. You're just ahead of the curve, and these are some things we want to make sure you're aware of. So, a couple differences. Coming from secondary school or high school, you had teachers. You likely referred to them as Mr. So-and-so or Ms. or Madame so-and-so. These folks will now be your professors. Professors are also sometimes referred to as instructor. This is honestly person to department dependent. It's the same thing. These are the folks who teach your classes. What's important to note at the university level is professors are not necessarily trained teachers. I know that sounds kind of funny, but rather they are PhD level specialists in the subject area they teach. So for example, if you are taking an English class in the English department, you may be taught by a Dr. Collins. That Dr. Collins is a specialist in English. They have sat and written a PhD in English. They are not a medical doctor. That's sometimes a little bit confusing. These are your teachers. So we will now be using the language of professor, instructor, and many will go by doctor, followed by their surname. In elementary and secondary school, I'm assuming you had or heard of educational assistants, or what you probably called EAs. You likely also called these folks Mr., Miss, so-and-so. Some EAs even go by their first names. In university, you are going to hear a lot about and interact a lot with what we call teaching assistants, TAs. Very similar, we've just changed the first letter. However, different from educational assistants. Rather than being available to support specific students, maybe in a one-on-one setting, TAs are actually typically graduate level students. So they're in their master's or in their PhDs. They're kind of following the professors up that trajectory. And what these folks do is provide comprehensive academic support to a class. If you are in a class, you will have a professor, and in many cases, that class will also have one or more TAs assigned to it. These TAs will help your professor with grading and marking. They will lead your tutorials and labs, which we're going to talk about in a minute. They're the folks that you might go to for tutoring or help and questions. And they're also a great upper level resource in that program. If you have a TA in a math class and you want to learn more about upper year math and what that looks like, they're the folks who are right in the thick of it. So that's what a TA does. In high school, you likely had a guidance counselor. These folks sometimes go by other titles. Sometimes we hear titles like resource teacher. They're all kind of encompassed in this idea of a guidance counselor. These folks maybe would have supported you with your personal concerns, talked to you about what university or college you wanted to go to, guided you through your electives and courses. Basically, they were experts. Here at Queen's, we have virtually the same thing, focused on your academics, and these are your academic advisors. In every faculty, so whether you are in arts and science, health science, engineering, commerce, you have academic advisors. These folks are experts, top-notch experts on your course planning, understanding your degree requirements, building your class schedule, and basically helping you get from point A to point Z in your degree. You can access these folks at any point in time, including starting now as an incoming first year, and they are top-notch support across the board. We highly recommend getting in touch. Let's talk a little more about classes. You had classes in high school. You're still going to have classes here. And really, you're going to hear the word classes a lot. I'm sure the students in this webinar could attest with me. We all still say class. But at the university level, we are using it to actually refer to three very distinct things. The first is lectures. Picture a quote unquote traditional university auditorium with a lecturer or a professor standing at the front of the room delivering content. That's a lecture. This is part of most courses at Queen's, certainly every first year course. And that is always going to be think of it as the anchor to your course. You're going to go to a lecture. Accompanying your lecture, you may also have labs. Labs, as the name would suggest, is more of a hands-on learning opportunity. We have labs attached to anatomy classes. You go to your lecture, and then another day of the week, you go to your lab. You apply what you learned in lecture. You're actually looking at specimens. Maybe you're in engineering. You'll have your engineering lecture, and in your lab, you're going to be applying the principles that you've learned, looking at the equations. How do they apply to real structures? So labs accompany lectures. They're typically on different days of the week. You might have your lecture on Monday and your labs on Wednesday and Thursday, or vice versa. Another important type of class that can accompany your lecture is your tutorials. Tutorials are similar to labs in that they're smaller groups. So your whole big lecture hall isn't all going into a lab classroom. You're split into smaller groups, just like your whole big lecture isn't going into a tutorial. A tutorial instead is a smaller group, often run by the TA, where you're going to dive deep into material. You're going to have discussion groups. You're going to have lots of reflection. It's an opportunity to really dig deeper into the content, have more time with your TA, really deep in your learning. And again, it accompanies the lecture. So when we say class, we could be referring to any of these three things. You will know your class schedule better than any of us. So we as staff typically stick to have a good class, and we might not know what you're going to every time, but you'll be going to one of the three. Finally, let's talk about the office. I remember in high school, the office was where I went. If I needed something, if I felt like I wasn't doing something right, if I wanted some support. We have lots of different offices, if you will, at Queen's, but the word I want to introduce you today is registrar. You're going to hear this word a lot. I remember when I first attended university, people kept saying it in my first week, and I didn't know what this word meant. I'd never heard it before. It's a fancy way of saying main office. Our registrar is a person, and this person is responsible for the administrative running of the university. So this is the office you go to for admin support. If you need support or questions about your transcript somewhere down the line. Sometimes for funding supports, you're going to be asked for a school stamp. These sorts of things come from the registrar, and they are right smack dab in the middle of main campus. You can't miss them. Two other really important terms I want to sort of chat through quickly that might not have an equivalent in high school. Your high school may have, but even if they didn't, they become really important now that you're at university. The first is office hours. Every course you take will have office hours attached to it. These are offered by your instructor and or your TAs. It kind of depends on how they're splitting the load. And this is dedicated time when your professor and or TAs will have their door open. So you might go to a lecture and they will say, hey, by the way, my office hours are Thursdays from 4 to 6. Here's my office number. If you drop by during those times, my door is open. I am available to you. Great opportunity to ask questions, get clarity, and receive academic support specifically for their course. Students might go to, ask, can you go over this assignment again? I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do. Or they might say, hey, I found this equation really difficult. Can we walk through it one-on-one so I know I understand it? That's what your dedicated office hours are for. The second really important thing, you're going to hear the word or the acronym AMS a lot. That's our alma mater society. What does this really boil down to? It's your student government. These are the students who are elected or hired officials who represent you at the student level up to the administration of Queen's. The AMS is responsible for running and overseeing student staff services. So we have quite a few student staffed cafes and pubs and recreational services on campus, as well as overseeing clubs and some of the student jobs. Basically, their role is to advocate for you and your voice as a student on campus, and they do a lot of work. And so you're going to hear a lot about the AMS. If you ask about clubs, probably staff is going to say, hey, check the AMS website. They've got great resources. If you want to be a part of student government at Queen's someday, that's the AMS. You probably had a student government in high school, many did, but often we find this is a very new acronym. And so I wanted to bring it to your attention. That's a little about language. That's not to say that there still won't be terms that you occasionally come across and think, what is that? I'm still coming across acronyms at Queen's that I think, oh, let me stop and think about what that might mean. When in doubt, we have a full encyclopedia at Queen's. It's online, it's digital, you can peruse it, has some really cool history of where some of these terms and names and ideas came from, and you can always take a look there. I will also say with confidence, when in doubt, ask a staff or an upper year peer. We're always happy to help, and we always want to make sure everyone's in the know. So aside from language, what about just general academic norms? How are things going to change? Really, in university, one of the biggest adjustments you may experience is the increase in having to self-manage more of your responsibilities. This may not be true for all of you, but we do find this is often a common first year transition, norm transition that students need to become aware of. So this includes not only self-management of academics, but also now more self-management of your own social connection and community and your own personal wellness, which encompasses, quite a bit. So let's start with academics. During the first week of classes each semester, your professor or TA in the class is going to review your syllabus. So this is basically your course outline. It gives you all the information about what the course covers, how you can pass the course, so what assignments you have to do, and all of the important information, where their office hours are, how you can find them. From there, that is your professor giving you all the tools you might need to understand their course, to then find what self-management strategies are going to work best for you. You're going to have to be managing your class schedule, making sure you're attending all of your lectures, labs, and tutorials, staying up to date with your coursework. Coursework, when we say the word coursework, it can include readings, assignments, group work, and other forms of assessment based on how the professor is guiding their course. You may find at this level that there are less reminders for due dates. You might find your professors take a less active role in keeping students, quote unquote, on track in their classes. Your academic self-management may need to increase slightly. The good news is it's always buffeted by a lot of support. In the right-hand column on your screen, you can see that I've listed student academic support services, and we also have faculty and department-specific tutoring. Although you're self-managing your academics more independently, you're never completely on your own. We're never throwing you out to the deep end. We want you to access these and other supports when you're finding that the academic pillar needs a little extra help. Secondly is that social connection and community. Some students coming through to university may have progressed through their elementary and secondary schools with really the same core group of students. Maybe that was because you lived in the same neighborhood. Maybe it was because you went to a small school. Maybe you just found that core group and it worked really well. Moving to university, it can feel like there are endless options to get involved, and that can actually become a little overwhelming in itself. The good news is you get to decide what you want to try out and get involved in. I know when I was in secondary school, some of my extracurriculars were told to me. I had to do certain things. When I got to this level, the world was my oyster. There was so much more I could try out. Additionally, whereas your secondary school connections and community, so extracurriculars, sports teams, for example, were likely planned around the school day, this won't always be the case in university because no one's school day looks the same necessarily. Our labs and tutorials and lectures can run as early as 8 a.m. to as late as the evening period. Clubs have to pick a time that works for their executive, sports team have to follow practice schedules set out by the gym, so on and so forth. And you'll have to make sure that you have your own system in place to manage your schedule. How are you going to balance academics and connections? Both are important. I don't want you to let one or the other go. And so it's all about just learning what works for you. Finally, personal wellness. For the vast majority of students coming into first year at Queen's, this is your first experience with living away from family or supporters. This means that you have to manage your personal wellness, which starts to encompass a whole lot more. Eating meals, which means finding the dining hall, get to the dining hall, keeping your space tidy at a level that works for you, doing your laundry, exercising how that feels good for you, and more. I want to stress here, it can take some time, but these tasks of daily living will become a natural part of your routine. It just takes some time to find your feet and find that routine. And if you need help, we've got lots of great folks on campus ready to support you. What I want to stress on this slide is that although the responsibility for self-management is going to go up, it is absolutely not insurmountable. Students do it every year, and the best thing to remember is there is supports for every single one of these areas if one starts to feel a little wobbly. That is what we're here for. The things I've listed in the second column, in that right-hand column on the screen, are really just a small sampling of supports. I'm sure our students are sitting in the background tonight thinking, oh, Taylor could have said this and this support that I really love, and they'll talk about that in a minute. But the message I want you to take away is that we're here to help. You are going to be given more responsibility and independence, but we're never going to ask you to go it alone. So finding your community, I want to take some time to talk about this specifically because let's be honest, it's a huge part of university. It's a lot to leave your home community or your home and to come and live here with us. And we want to make sure you find your community for while you're here. There's lots of opportunities right from the get-go. In first week, move-in happens and we've got community opportunities for you. University orientation has 3 big events. We want you to check these out. No registration required. They're very clear when they're happening and where when you get here and in the information you'll be getting now. This is a great time to start to meet other people, as well as your faculty orientation. So we do have 2 distinct orientations here at Queen's that kind of work in partnership. University orientation is everyone. Faculty orientation gets more specific. If you are coming into concurrent education, you can register specifically for concurrent education and be put in a group of first year orientation folks. This is a great opportunity to meet more people in your program, meet your upper years. Faculty orientation is run by upper year students in the program. Great time to build community and start to build some belonging on campus. As well, residents. The vast majority of first year Queen's students do live in a residence building. And if you are, your residence Dawn, who's an upper year Queen's student who has lived in res before and is living on your floor to help guide you through the year, will host welcome evenings and events throughout the year. Great time. Meet your floor mates, figure out who you're living with, and start to build some community in your home. This is going to be your home for the next 8 months, and we want you to feel at home. One myth I want to dispel right now is the idea that you will and should find your best friends, all of them, immediately in the first week. It can feel like a lot of pressure to do this. Rest assured, this is not always or even frequently the case. You will meet new folks throughout your entire degree, particularly throughout first year. But you're going to meet new students anytime you try a new club, visit a new event, take a different class. There's so many different ways to meet people, and it can feel daunting in the first week to say, I have to meet my friends right now, and if I haven't, something's gone wrong. That's not the case. First years continue to meet friends, and some folks are meeting their best groups and the folks they're going to stick with towards the later part of the year or into second year, and that's okay. Take your time, try out different things that interest you, and the folks will show up. Another great way to really find community at Queen's is to consider what intersectional identities you may have and you want to lead with at Queen's. Couple places that I want to highlight for you include Yellow House, 4 Directions Indigenous Student Center, which you'll often hear staff and students referring to as 4D, Faith and Spiritual Life, and Queen's Student Accessibility Services. Again, these are simply a sampling of places that can help, that can build community, that can give you resource based on your identity. We recognize as a first-gen student, like I said earlier, that may be one of only various identities. It may be one that you want to explore at varying times and not. And the same goes for the identities that these support services help and guide. These are just some that I want you to be aware of, and you'll hear lots from these folks as well during your first couple weeks on campus. One other thing I want to plug is the Q Success Mentorship Program. This is something that applies to all first-year students, and I highly encourage you to take advantage of. This is one-on-one mentoring with an upper year student at Queen's. So our mentoring program is a bit unique in that we let you self-match. We're not going to force a match that maybe doesn't fit for you. So you actually make an account on an e-mentoring platform, an online platform from your home right now. You can start it immediately. It's super simple to register, 3 steps and you're done. And you can then navigate a list or profiles of our upper year mentors. It will tell you a little bit about them, what program they study in, what year they're in, and other interest areas and things they're into. And you can then say, hey, this sounds like a good match. One area of interest, quote unquote interest, is what the platform calls it, is navigating campus as a first generation student. If you really want to chat with an upper year who has gone through this transition, also as a first generation student, you can filter and say, these are the mentors I want to see. And you can make a match that way. You can also make a match based on any other interest or program of study. Some first years really find benefit from an upper year mentor who's been through the courses they're going to go through. A 4th year engineer, maybe, if you're in engineering. This is a great opportunity to not only form connections, but to really build skills and have a safe place to go. Sometimes it can just feel a little more comfortable talking to your peers than a staff member. That's okay. That's why we have these mentors. They are highly trained individuals, and they know how to support you with a whole range of questions, academics to social connections, to using the laundry machine, all of these sorts of things. They're here to help. Mentors and mentees meet weekly throughout the academic year for your first year. So it's a very consistent level of support as well. If you find like, hey, I don't need to go sit in a staff member's office every week, that's not what I'm looking for. I want something a bit more casual. Maybe we'll grab a tea or a coffee at Cogrow, which is a cafe you're all going to become very familiar with on campus. This is a great way to do that and to build connection. And my last little plug here is on-campus employment. There seems to be a myth that students at Queen's don't work, and this couldn't be farther from the truth. We actually have a huge number of our student population that work throughout the school year. I have 3 students here with me tonight on the webinar alone who are working in our office, which is so exciting. Many of our students work part-time through the academic year. Lots of benefits to part-time work. For those of you who have worked part-time or full-time before, you already know what I'm talking about. You're going to build skills in community. You're going to meet more mentors, and you're going to be earning. I personally worked all through university, and it was a great way to do all of those things and also to have an identity outside of my academics. That felt good too. At Queen's, we use something called the My Career Job Board. If you Google search Queen's My Career Job Board, it'll be the top hit. This is where on-campus student positions are posted. Fall positions will start to get posted in the next sort of month and a half to 2 months, and then they'll continue to trickle in throughout the year. We also have a dedicated office of expert professionals who can help you with career supports. And this starts at first year, but goes all the way to grad. They can help you make a resume and cover letter for part-time work every year. And they're also there for you when you are in 4th year and you want to start exploring graduate school or career. They help with editing, interview preparation, job search support, and way more. I honestly can't plug them enough. And I'm not just saying that because I used to be a career advisor in a former life. Let's take it one step at a time. If you're thinking about working, take a look at the job board over the next little while and see if anything jumps out at you. Pro tip, some of you will be eligible for work study. Work study gives students priority for particular on-campus positions. When you log into your Solus account, it'll tell you if you're eligible for work study. Great opportunity to get some on-campus hands-on experience throughout your time here. That's my last little hot tip. And now I couldn't be more excited to pass it back to Ella, who's going to move into the student portion of our webinar tonight.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Your thoughtful insight and your reflection on the first-generation student experience offers such a meaningful foundation for today's webinar, and I know your words resonated with many of us here today. To build on that, we want to make sure that you also hear directly from students who have lived this experience. So next up, we're excited to invite Azelle and Sam, 2 student leads in the Student Experience Office, and first-generation students here at Queen's to share their experiences. Through their stories, you'll get a glimpse into their journeys, what's been challenging, what's helped them feel supported, and how they found community and confidence along the way. So let's give a warm welcome to Azelle and Sam.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to share my story at Queen's University. So, as I said, my name is Azelle. I am a 4th year art sci student majoring in applied economics. And I'm an international student from Guatemala. I came here 3 years ago and I chose Queen's due to its tight-knit community, beautiful campus, proximity to Lake Ontario, and well-established economics program. If I'm fully honest, the first year was hard as I struggled with making friends, adapting to a new country, and having no support system here. However, I eventually found great people who became my home. I soon started to feel part of the Queens and Kingston community as I joined clubs, talked to people in class, and attended events. All of this helped me understand the importance of human connection and community. For many of you, as Taylor said, this will be your first time living far from home. Therefore, it's particularly important to find a supportive community around you, and with time, Queens will become your home too. As a first generation and international student, one of the biggest challenges I faced was not being able to ask my parents for support regarding university or life in Canada. Therefore, I had to find alternative resources to feel supported. In my case, I was able to find a supportive community at Yellow House, which is a center that supports QT BIPOC students. I attended all the early events and quickly made friends. There are many other resources on campus where you can find a community, such as the Four Direction Indigenous Student Center if you're an Indigenous student, Queen's University International Center, or QUIC if you're an international student, and a variety of student clubs through the AMS, which is the student government. Clubs are a great way to meet other like-minded students, develop soft and hard skills, and apply what you learn in class. Through my time here, I've been involved in Queens and in clubs such as the Queens Vertical Farming and Association, Queens Student Diversity Project, Queens Black Fashion Association, etc. These resources made my transition to Queens easier as they provided a space where I could connect with other students with whom I share the same lived experience. One thing I recommend is to leave your dorm or house as much as you can. This can be daunting, but I recommend going to some of the events you see advertised on Instagram or in posters on your way to class. That way you can explore and approach this new space with curiosity because there is so much you discover. Another challenge I faced was managing my mental health, as it was affected due to all the changes going on around me and feeling like an imposter. Um, In classrooms, I often had the feeling that I was not meant to be there, since everyone seemed to know more than me. This altered perception had a negative impact on my learning, as it prevented me from asking questions and going to office hours. A resource I found especially useful was the residence mental health therapist for students living in residence, as well as the therapist at student wellness services for those living off campus. My parents' support was also detrimental, as they reassured me and comforted me whenever I was feeling stressed or overwhelmed. Knowing I could call them whenever I needed some encouragement made me feel reassured and helped me keep going. Calling them often also helped with the feelings of homesickness from being far from home. Queen's University has been a place where I've been able to find what I'm passionate about, meet wonderful people, and learn new things. At first, it felt like life was handing me more than I could handle, and I must say, it still feels that way sometimes. However, trust that your ability to overcome challenges and hardship will grow as you step outside your comfort level. And I encourage you to do so because outside your comfort level is where you'll find yourself and learn things you didn't know you knew. You're doing something no one in your family has done before, so be patient with yourself and don't compare yourself to others. Everyone's starting at a different level, and that's okay. We are here to support you, and I am sure that your journey at Queens will be wonderful.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening so far. My name is Sam. I use she, they pronouns, and in September, I'll be entering my third year here at Queens. I'm currently majoring in psychology and minoring in sociology, and I'm also the Shift Project student lead here at the SEO, where I work to develop initiatives that are meant to foster allyship and build a more inclusive campus culture. So, what initially drew me to Queens was the fact that there are so many opportunities for academic enrichment and growth, such as getting involved in labs and gaining hands-on experience. As a high-achieving high school student, I wanted to make sure that I would be attending a university where I could grow academically and professionally. And it was clear that Queens could provide that, so it was always on my radar. But there are two factors that really drove me to commit to Queens. The first factor was the chance to move away from home. As nerve-wracking as it was to leave everything I had ever known, I also knew that I had to go out of my comfort zone, both literally and figuratively, to experience personal growth alongside the academic and professional growth. Kingston itself is also very student-friendly, with downtown being in close proximity to campus and with so many community events happening throughout the year. As such, I felt as though coming to Queens was an opportunity for me to experience growth in all aspects of life. The second factor that helped me commit to Queens was receiving the Commitment Scholars Award, a scholarship based on community involvement that provides not only financial support, but also mentorship from upper year commitment scholars and access to advisors. So with all of this financial, personal, academic, and professional support that was being offered, that could ultimately help me grow and thrive, I chose Queens. And as a first-gen student, I continue to receive so much support from both resources and people on campus. In my first year, I connected with a couple of mentors through the Q Success Mentorship Program, which Taylor discussed earlier. Both of my mentors were also first-gen equity deserving students, so they really understood my struggles and concerns and gave me advice that still sticks with me today. Whatever I had on my mind, whether it be about grades, navigating campus, getting ready to live off of campus, or just general life worries, I knew I could go to my mentors. And as a first-gen student, I remember thinking just how glad I was to finally know what it feels like to have older siblings that have been through the university transition and are just genuinely happy to guide you and help you. If you can't formally connect with a mentor through a structured program like Q Success, it's still possible to receive that kind of support just by connecting with upper year students whenever the opportunity arises. I've gotten so much advice just by casually talking to upper year students in different capacities, whether they're in my classes, at the same place of work on campus, or in the same club. And as a first gen student, I really struggled with coping with the fact that I couldn't ask my parents or an older sibling for advice when it came to anything about university. It felt really isolating and overwhelming. But you'll be really surprised by just how many people there are on this campus who are happy to share any wisdom or advice that they have. This also goes for academics. A big part of starting university is transitioning to different academic standards for assignments and evaluations, as Taylor discussed earlier as well. As a first-gen student, this was a big source of stress for me in my first year. So despite how shy I felt, and I'm a naturally shy person, I took it upon myself to connect with my TAs and professors during their office hours to ask for help. And that has really gotten me through some of my toughest academic times. Especially with the expectations and standards that often come with being a first-gen student, whether they come from yourself or from others, it's important to remember that it is not weak to ask for help and to lean on others. Ask the upper years for advice, ask your TAs and professors for help, and access the resources that are here to help you, whether that be student wellness services, student academic success services, or Queen's student accessibility services. A lot of acronyms that you'll learn when you come here on campus. Another thing that I struggled with during my first year was feeling really integrated into campus on a social level. As a first-gen queer student of color, I really felt that pressure of being the first in my family to go to university, as well as an obligation to succeed, which made me really focus on academics and kind of ignore my social life. I felt that I had to be hyper independent in so many aspects of life, which led to me unconsciously building up these social walls around myself. But at the end of my first year, I applied to work at the Yellow House, the Student Center for Queer, Trans, Black, Indigenous, and/or students of color. And even though I no longer work there, I still see that space as home. By working there and attending their events, I got connected to some of the loveliest souls I have ever met and have made so many memories that I truly hold near and dear to my heart. I used to be intensely afraid of just talking to other people. And so I think one of the best things I've done for myself is just putting myself out there and connecting with people. Being part of a community provides you with a special sense of fulfillment that you can't get from burying yourself in books and doing everything alone. It might take some time, but you'll eventually find your people, and your chances of that increase the more you put yourself out there by going to events where you can connect with others. The scariest part is always the build-up where you debate whether or not to do something, to ask an upper year for advice, to access that service on campus, to go to your professor's office hours, to go to that event, to join a club, or to talk to that person in class. So some final words that I would like to leave you all with are to trust in your abilities and to take the leap of faith as much as you can while you're here at Queen's. For me, choosing Queen's and moving away from home was a leap of faith. Overcoming social anxiety and reaching out to upper years, professors, and TAs was a leap of faith. Accessing services on campus, despite all of my nervousness, was a leap of faith. I can confidently say that my time at Queen's as a first-gen student has been a positive one because I've trusted in myself and have gone outside of my comfort zone. And I know that you all are also capable of achieving everything that you want to achieve. Imposter syndrome can be so common, especially among first-gen students. But just remember that you got yourself here, you're meant to be here, and you're capable of creating the life that you want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam and Azelle, for sharing your meaningful stories with us. They're very inspiring, and we're grateful that you were able to be a part of this space today. So now it is time for the Q&A portion of this webinar, and we'd like to hear from all of you. As someone who's the first in your family to attend university, what are you hoping to learn or understand more about the Canadian university experience? How are you feeling about starting this new chapter at Queen's this fall? What questions, thoughts, or concerns are on your mind as you get ready for this transition? Feel free to use the Q&A feature on your screen to send in any of your questions, and you can also use the anonymous feature if that makes you feel more comfortable. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can during this time, and we also have some staff on the back end to answer more specific questions in the chat as well. So let me take a look and see what our first question is for Taylor. If I need some extra support, where is the first place I could go, and what would my first steps be?
What a good question. I love this question because often this is something we as staff get, which is someone comes to us for support and we say, absolutely, what do you need? And sometimes you don't even know, and that's okay. That's what we're here to help figure out. So I could give you so many different answers based on what type of support you're looking for. If it's academic, or if you're feeling emotionally a little wobbly, or if you're looking for some food support, lots of different things. If this was a question of, I'm just feeling off, I'm not quite sure, I can't quite land on what it is, but I know I want to talk to someone, my best advice is present to any resource staff. So that would look like student wellness services, student academic success services, your academic advisor. Any of us will be happy to ask the question I just asked, which is, what's going on? And if the answer is, I'm not quite sure, I'm feeling a bit wobbly, we are all trained to refer to each other and to get you to where you need to be and to ask the right questions to understand what that might look like. A good jump point is also always your professors. Often you see your professors more than you see your support staff. That's good. That's the whole point. You should be in their classes every week. And so they are a more familiar and maybe comfortable face. Our professors are also fantastic at making referrals and knowing the campus that they work on. If you feel comfortable approaching a prof after class or during their office hours and saying, hey, I have this question. I know it's not for you, but I can't figure out where to go. They're going to help you navigate as well. Lots of different options. I guess my message there would be an open door, any open door, and people are happy to help. As a staff member, I do it myself. I walk into colleagues' offices and say, hey, I know you're not the person, but I need some brainstorming help. Where can we go for this? We're all always happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Taylor. Okay, our next question. Do you have any recommended jobs and volunteer positions that are on campus for incoming students?
Cool. I love that question. So while I can't comment specifically on like what specific jobs and opportunities may come up because they tend to change year over year dependent on staffing, I would say look for two key things. So one area students like to do is look for relevancy to program. Okay, so what do I mean by that? A student in engineering might look for a job in the Eng labs, being like a bit of a lab assistant and helping with some of the stuff there. Or a student in the commerce school might look at the peer wellness coaching positions that we have in the commerce school. They want to connect more with their peers in their school. They want to learn more about the inner workings. So relevancy to department or program, that can be a good jump point. I would also argue, though, that the other area is really cool, which is just like what sounds interesting and might build my skills a little more. And often the skills we build that maybe aren't seemingly directly relevant to program are very relevant and are going to help us become like this really full-rounded person when we start our journey. And so we have lots of different student positions. Some students really love to work within athletics and rec, more of an energy, fast-paced, helping with intramurals, varied hours that might work with schedules a little bit better. And they really just want the energy and the social connection and being at events. And that's a great way to get there. Those are great jobs. Some students say, I'm feeling a little more introverted. First year is already feeling really overwhelming. So I want to work, but I don't want to be at a basketball game leading the crowd. That's fine. So let's look at jobs that are going to be a little more independent, but still keep you connected. Lots of student positions in the library, lots of student positions within faculties within those sort of admin roles. So I would say either looking at relevancy to program and what those sound like, or then looking at relevancy to skills you want to build or hone in on. Two great ways to start. In terms, that is sort of more specific for jobs. I'm not gonna lie. So for volunteering, I would honestly say take a deep breath because the options can sometimes feel overwhelming. And I'm sure our students could attest to this. Sometimes you walk around campus and it's like every bulletin board is 70 opportunities to volunteer. So volunteering is a great opportunity. I would really encourage you to get in touch with thinking of like, how do I want to give back to community? University is a great time because you will have so many volunteer opportunities to partake in. So think about what's really going to fill my passion point there. Lots of students also use volunteer opportunities to help with resume. Maybe you'll volunteer with Best Buddies, which connects you with a special needs individual in community because you want to work in rec therapy in a future life. That's great. But I also really encourage you to say, what drives my values? I'm going to be doing this altruistically. I'm going to be taking time out of my schedule. And so we want you to enjoy it and really be giving back to a part of the community that you either feel connected to or you want to help support. Lots of different opportunities. When in doubt, the open door you should be going to for those questions is career services. Can't stress it enough.
Thank you, Taylor. Okay, our next one. Where do I go if I want to join a club?
Yay! I was so hoping someone would ask about clubs. Okay, first stop shop, AMS Club Directory. AMS, which means, I wish I could put someone on the spot. I could put Ella on the spot. AMS is your alma mater society, so your student government. They have a club directory. So this is a website that has alphabetical, sorted, basically glossary of all of the student clubs. I shouldn't say all, almost all of the student clubs on campus. Last year, the AMS went through a website rehaul, revamp, whatever you want to call it. And so it's been redone. That's a great place to start, especially when you're not on campus. Like we can't sort of get you in front of the clubs yet. So go check that out. The club directory, I will say though, it just lists them. So when you find a club that sounds interesting, the best place to go, and this may sound funny from a staff member, I've had some of my students look at me questioningly, is their Instagram profile. You are all students and your peers know how to connect with you best. And what we have noticed is that clubs really use Instagram, which is a great social media to leverage. And that is where they're going to post events, how to get involved, and so on and so forth. Another thing I would say is once you get to campus, you will have the opportunity to attend lots of different events. Like we have a street fair, a get to know you, a res fair, where there'll be lots of services and supports that have booths. Anytime you see a booth on campus, literally anytime, just walk near it. Take a read of the sign. You don't have to talk to them every time. Maybe you want to like take a little sneaky walk so they don't make eye contact with you until you know if you want to talk to them. But lots of clubs and intramurals and ways to get involved will set up boothing in the dining hall. They'll set up boothing in the gym area. And it's just a great opportunity to say like, oh, I've never heard of this club. What do they do? And you can go and chat with them, particularly in September. That's when clubs are recruiting. They want new members. And that will be a great way once you're on campus. Don't be scared of a booth. My other advice with the booths is that almost always, and our students can back me up here, they're giving away something, stickers or cookies or something or other. And so it's a good opportunity to talk to someone and snag a free cookie or a sticker for your laptop as well. Those would be my two pieces, AMS Club Directory and booths.
Thank you, Taylor. Okay, our next question. Where can I find community if I'm not living in residence?
That's a great question. And we actually have a dedicated support for you. So we have something called OCC, or off-campus community. We do recognize that there is a group of first-year students and then all your upper years who live off campus and you might not be receiving residence events. And so off-campus community is your place to go. Off-campus community is run by upper year students who were off-campus community members. So they would have lived off campus in their first year. And they now will run events, socials, and be a place of support for you. Check out the OCC Instagram. See, I told you, I'm going to keep telling you to go back to Instagram for more information. In the summer, for the next month, I guess we only have a month left of summer, the OCC is running online webinars. Here's some more, but these are a good example of the OCC is running some socials. So online socials to connect with other students who might be living off campus. So go check out Queens U OCC. Those are going to be your folks. You'll get connected to first years and upper years.
Thank you, Taylor. Okay, our next question. Is there anything you recommend I should do to prepare now before I move away from home?
Oh, there's so many things I could say. I would say prepare by spending lots of time with the people who fill your cup, the people you have around you, and soaking all that up. Along with that, I honestly think something that we don't talk about a lot, but that can be quite helpful, is with those folks, talking about what to do if something does come up. And what I mean by that is saying to mom and dad or whoever supporter is, or maybe you are very close to your aunt and she's the person you're going to call, or your best friend's going into a different school. For the first little while, things are going to feel very unknown. And it's nice to have some knowns. Sometimes it can be good to chat with those folks. Maybe we chat with mom and dad and say, hey, I want to do Sundays at 4 o'clock, we're going to have a call. It keeps you accountable to a time, it keeps them accountable to a time, and it gives you something you know is coming, and that can be really helpful. It also can be really helpful to say to these folks, if I reach out with this code word, it means I need a call right now, and I just need a 5-minute call. Maybe your code word is bananas, and it just means, hey, I'm feeling that moment when I just need someone to hear me and give me a safe space to chat. So I would say setting some norms with these folks, and that gives you something to sort of adjust to, and you know your folks are still here waiting for you. That would be one of my biggest pieces of advice. As well, I would say check out, I love these questions about clubs and OCC, check them out, and also give yourself room to explore different things. Try not to get too married, quote unquote, to sort of one thing that you're like, this is what I'm going to do. If it doesn't live up to expectations or it's not quite what you expected, that can feel like quite a letdown. And so give yourself time to explore, take a look at some clubs, jot a couple down, give yourself a top 3 or 5 so you have some different options to get when you get here to try and find that community. And the last thing I would say is come up with a toolkit. Maybe it's a literal toolkit or a toolkit in your head of what you're going to do for you. What do you need in your res room or in your apartment? What do you need? When I lived away from home for the first time, I didn't even think about the fact that I really needed a hot water bottle for like comfort and for, you know, headaches. And I didn't bring one. That was just something my house always had. It magically appeared. And so think and ask yourself, what do I need that's going to bring me comfort and bring me some normalcy? And have it ready. Have a little tote bag or a little bucket by your bed of those things that will just sort of ground you back to, I'm still me. I'm just me in a different space, and that's okay. Those would be my biggest pieces of advice, things you can prep before coming.
Thank you, Taylor. Okay, this is a question about orientation. What's the difference between faculty orientation and general orientation beyond whether there are students from a similar faculty, and what are some notable events between the two?
Yeah, great question. So honestly, the big notable difference is that uni orientation's everyone and faculty, like you are in your distinct faculty. But then I would say the events are very different. So faculty orientation is often more specific. You might have more specific orientation to the faculty itself, like tours of the building, chats with upper years about what classes might look like. You might have more smaller group social mixers. University orientation, we are sort of starting your identity off as a Gale. You're all Gales, regardless of your faculty. And so we're going to have a sports game. So a large stadium sports game where you're all going to come together. That's your first big piece of identity as first years. You're all going to be cheering for the same team. We're going to have welcome home parade and welcome home night. And those are all ways that we're going to really integrate you into the Queen's community. In terms, Ella, can you say the second half of the question again? Yeah. I want to make sure I'm hitting it all.
What are some notable events between the two?
Oh yeah, those would be the big ones for university orientation, certainly. Faculty orientation, you're also going to see some of the events that you may have heard spoken about because they've lasted for a lot longer. Faculty orientation is a very historically entrenched thing here at Queen's. It's always updating with the times, but some things have gone on for years. We've had movie nights that have been going on for literally years. We've had socials at the pub that again happen all the time, and so you get some of that history and you start to really feel like part of the legacy of your faculty. It is absolutely not required. We highly encourage you to do orientation. You do not have to. It is not everybody's way to get involved, and that's okay. You will have lots of opportunity to meet folks within your department otherwise.
Thank you, Taylor. I'll just add on a little bit about the certain events at different faculty orientation. I remember an event that a lot of the faculties do is coverall paintings. You go out to the park and everybody gets a coverall and you get to like decorate it and paint it, and you paint it with your hands, which is super fun. That was one of my favorite events when I did orientation. And we only have a few minutes remaining, so we're going to finish with one final question for you, Taylor. What final piece of advice would you give to first-generation students to help ensure their transition to Queen's is successful?
Oh, I'm going to borrow from Sam and Izelle. A, because Sam and Izelle are my experts, and B, because I think they honestly said it more eloquently than I ever could. Ask for help, and don't be afraid to ask for help. You are not the only student doing it. You're not the only student who wishes they're doing it more. And we are all here to help. Your upper year peers, staff, each other. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I need a little support. you can find so many different places to ask that question. So it might take some time to find the space you feel safest, but absolutely ask for help. When in doubt, all of us here at the webinar are in the student experience office. We're in the John Deutsch or the JDEC, which is a building you'll become very familiar with. Come in our door. When in doubt, we are all going to help you find your way. That would be again, I'm taking that from Iselle and Sam because they know far more about this than I do and they have the experience, but that would be my last piece of advice.
Thank you, Taylor, and thank you everyone for your questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to email student.experience@queensu.ca with any additional questions, or when you get to campus, feel free to pop into our office. So I'm going to talk a little bit, just to mention some of these upcoming events this summer that are on the screen right now. All of these webinars are open to students, parents, and supporters. So on August 6th, we have our Getting Involved at Queens webinar. To learn more about Residents Move In, you can register for our webinar on August 12th. And if you're interested in learning more about fall orientation, you can attend our webinar on August 18th. There's also a couple other webinars this summer that are all on the summer webinars page on the Student Experience Office website, as well as we have one more summer social. So be sure to check out the website to register for those. And then on the next slide, we have our feedback form. So this is an opportunity to be entered into a draw for a $50 Q Shop gift card. We have a feedback form for our webinar series, and we want to hear from all of you at home. All incoming students, parents, and supporters are encouraged to provide their feedback. It will only take approximately 3 minutes to complete, and it can be done using the QR code on the screen. We'll also post it as a link in the Q&A discussion section. You can complete one feedback form per student experience webinar per person. And if you're watching this webinar as a recording, you can also complete the form. It will close August 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, shortly after the final webinar takes place. So thank you to our presenters for this evening, Taylor, Sam, and Iselle, and our back-end support staff for their time. And thank you to all of you at home for attending. We hope you have a great night, and we're very much looking forward to seeing you at Queens.